Everyone. We will be starting the webinar shortly, but just hang tight and we'll be with you. Jane, you're still on off mute. You're not on mute. We're going to start in a minute. Karen, you can forward the slide. We're just waiting for a couple more. There's a couple more people joining us, so just give us a couple more minutes and we'll be starting. All right. Well, I think we're ready to roll. So we were having a little technical difficulty there in the background. And there's our final panelist. Thank you. Uh, Erin Kariana, you can advance this slide. So you're with the MLA water quality training today. And in case you think you may be in the wrong spot, so let's get started. My name is Deborah Martin Downs. I'm the current chair of the Environmental Committee. I'm going to be your moderator and part of your panel for tonight. I'm a second generation cottager on Lake Muskoka and a member of the East Bay Water Quality Testing Team. And having said that, I have never taken this training or run the water quality program before. So this is a learning experience for all of us. So thank you for taking your time to join us this afternoon and for being part of this exclusive group of MLA water quality testers. And welcome to those of you who are new to the program and maybe new to the MLA as well. So thank you for joining us. All right, next slide. So this is the agenda that we are working on today. I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but we'll endeavor to get through it as quickly as possible. But we do have some new samplers joining us today, and we want to make sure everybody's feeling confident as you hit the water. So we're going to just do some introductions, talk about what the water quality program is, briefly, an overview of the 2023 water quality report. You'll have an opportunity to ask some questions at that point, and then we'll move into the water quality training, and you'll have opportunity to ask questions at the end of that. As we are in a webinar format, you can only ask questions through the Q&A box. So please use that, not the chat box. And if you want to put your name with it, we can get back to you with an answer if we're unable to address it here or we run out of time. And if you can't see the Q&A box, let us know through the chat or through, well, I guess you'll have to find the Q&A box on the bottom row of controls on Zoom. Next slide. So before we proceed, I want to introduce you to the team today. I'm joined by Chris Cragg, a past chair of the Environment Committee, and he's part of the Beaumaris area sampling team. Jan Getson is the lead of the Lake Muskoka East Bay team and star of our training video. Jane Armstrong is former MLA director and member of the Environment Committee, as well as a member of the Indian River Mirror Lake sampling team. And last but not least, Kariana Costa. She's our MLA staff person with responsibility for the program. Kariana has taken over from Chelsea, and for those of you who may have worked with Chelsea in the past, she's decided not to return to the MLA from her mat leave, and we do wish her well, and her children, of course. And of course, our team includes you, the volunteers, which are the most important part of our team, and we couldn't do this without you. Next slide. So I want to start with an overview of the program and why the what's and whys of what we do. Oops, you're way ahead of me, Kariana. There we go. And the what and the why we do as a context for training, so that you understand why the program is done the way it is. All right, next slide. So when we look back at the member issues over the years, even in 1894, when the MLA was founded, water quality has always been top of mind for Muskoka waterfront property owners. And I think you can imagine there's nothing worse than having a lake in front of you that's unsafe for swimming or for drinking. So fast forward to 2021, we asked our members what they valued about Muskoka most when we were doing our strategic plan, and 93% said they valued water quality great for swimming. And that's on the left side. And then a further 88% said they were worried about degradation of water quality in the future. And of course, that was followed very closely by boat noise, and that's on the right side of the graph. Next. And then we asked what the MLA should be spending more time on, and no surprise, actively promoting the protection of environment and water quality ranked as the top choice, followed very closely by actively promoting responsible development of the waterfront. And of course, these two are very closely linked. And for those of you who may not be aware, the MLA has a very active government and land use committee who engage in many files across the 4 municipalities we work in. For example, we intervene on development files that seek to overdevelop and engage in municipal official. We also engage in municipal official plans and bylaws, and work very closely with councillors over the years. I like to say you can't take the watershed out of the water. And the watershed of the Muskoka Lakes is very large. The headwaters of the river arise on the western slopes of Algonquin Park and flow southwesterly for a distance of almost 210 kilometers to discharge into the southeast corner of Georgian Bay. The watershed measures over 62 kilometers at its widest point and is approximately 120 kilometers long, encompassing an area of almost 5,100 square kilometers. And most of the lakes that we're talking about or where you're from are at the bottom of the watershed. Over 2,000 lakes can be found in the watershed that cover over 17% of the watershed. The largest of the lakes, Lake Muskoka at 115 square kilometers, Lake of Bays 67 square kilometers, and Lake Rosso at 62 square kilometers. There's also 42 dams and 36 lakes connected by over 170 kilometers of river. So the Muskoka River watershed is amongst the most complex in the province. Next. So this is where the MLA works. Some people think we just work in the big three lakes, but we don't. We work on all the lakes and rivers in Bracebridge, Gravenhurst, the southern port of Seguin that drains towards Lake Rosso and Lake Joseph, and the township of Muskoka Lakes. The green boundary on this map roughly approximates the area where the MLA is most active. We are also active in the watershed, but we concentrate our efforts in those municipal boundaries. And any lake in those areas can be part of the program. So what happens here? Sorry. What happens in the watershed affects the lakes, but also what happens at the local scale affects the lakes. We've seen the watershed scale affects, even as this spring, as we've seen the rainfall producing high lake levels. But the smaller scale effects are also very important. So our members have rightly made the link between development and other changes on the landscape and that effect on the water. So every land use change along the shoreline has the potential to affect water quality, albeit most of the time it's fairly localized. But even when we've done our best to keep our properties natural, we'll still have an effect. We've all cleared part of the land, we've all have a septic tank, and perhaps you too have a family member who just won't stop washing their hair in the lake, and I know I have one of those. The conditions at each site may be unique, whether they're exposed or whether they're in a shallow bay. Next. And so since the 1890s, water quality has been top of mind for our members, but it's only been since the early 2000s that we've been able to do a more comprehensive water quality program. And that's been a little bit in part because governments have cut back their sampling over time. The District of Muskoka has a very large monitoring program, but it's only one time in the lake. So ours is a little different, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about that. Ours is known as a citizen science program, and that became all the rage in the early 2000s as citizens were engaged in undertaking the science in their watershed, or whether it was bugs or flowers or wildlife. The MLA started its program in 2002, and we made changes over time of how and where we do our sampling. But one thing's not changed is that there is interest. The members are very interested in the program. Our water quality initiative stemmed from member concerns that the water in Muskoka may not be quite as clear and clean and pure as the good old days. So we want to keep it that way. So the water quality initiative has become one of the MLA's most significant programs, and thanks to our small army of citizen scientists volunteering their time and boats through the lakes of Muskoka. The samples collected are sent to an accredited laboratory for professional analysis, and then the results are analyzed and reported on by our environmental consultant, Hutchison Environmental Sciences, which was founded by Neil Hutchison, who lives in the watershed, who also designed the program for the MLA at the beginning. And then we prepare a report that is distributed to members, and it's on their website. So the key objective of the program is to determine the amount, nature, and activities associated with if the amount of nature of activities associated with shoreline development have altered key water quality indicators. And shortly, you'll be learning how to measure those things or collect those samples. So total phosphorus is one of the key ones that we analyze, and that's an indicator of lake productivity. We also do water clarity, and water clarity is influenced by sometimes tea staining, but it's also influenced by algal growth. or sediment in the water. So mostly for us, it's algal growth. And we look at that through with our Secchi discs. And then bacteria is an indicator of waterborne pathogens, and they could come from septic systems, they could come from wildlife, they can come from sediments that are stirred up. We've also recently added chloride, as science is telling us that road salt can impact our lakes at very low levels. You know, we've always known salt wasn't good for water, but we have much higher threshold typically through government thresholds. And we also document harmful blue-green algae occurrences as they're identified by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks or the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit. So we don't actually sample, we have one sample we do with the Muskoka Watershed Council, but otherwise we don't sample for them, but we're documenting the occurrence of. Next. So this is a little graphic about, you know, sort of where we sample and the scale of where we sample. So when we sample, we're trying to capture the types of effects from the larger scale. So as I said, the watershed scale down to the smaller scale. So out in the deep water, water is changing as it flows through the lake and it's mixing with wind and wave action. And here we monitor phosphorus concentrations at deep water sites for long-term trends. And we monitor water clarity to see and water temperature to help explain the unexpected results and determine trends. And then we monitor in the near shore, and the near shore captures the effects of creeks or runoff or groundwater interactions, in addition to wave and boat impacts. And here we have targeted monitoring of bacteria concentrations, and then in high use recreational areas as well. And then we monitor phosphorus concentrations near shore as well. So we sample from May 24th weekend, and I know it's a hard time for many, with many opening the cottage as I am, and but we try to do it to capture the time when the whole lake is mixed up and called spring turnover. So what do I mean by that? Well, simply put, lake turnover is the seasonal mixing of the entire water column. For many lakes deeper than 20 feet, there's a distinct thermally stratified layers of water that form during the summer, and that's on that left graph. Where you can see the mixed layer, the thermocline, where the temperature is rapidly dropping, and then the darker blue is where the water temperature can be as low as 4 degrees all summer long. So those layers prevent, because as the water gets colder, it is more dense and it doesn't mix with the upper layers. So that warmer and less dense water floats on top of the cooler water, and that but when the temperature starts to either cool down in the fall or warm up in the spring, the density layering is removed, and the whole lake can mix up, and the water turns over, becomes all one column, and oxygen gets down to the bottom of the lake, so that the fish have something to breathe in the summer months when there's no more mixing. So it allows nutrients and oxygen to be replenished throughout the water column, and that gives us an opportunity to see whether there's more nutrients in the spring turnover than we might see in the summer when the lake is stratified. So without this natural process, our lakes would not be nearly as vibrant and dynamic, and it's particularly important for our lake trout that occur in many of the Muskoka lakes, who definitely like it cold and well oxygenated. And then as the season progresses, we sample just the top of the lake, so where the water is trapped and it's not mixing, and what are we doing to it then? In the near shore, that process doesn't happen. We don't have stratification, but is certainly changing over the season with runoff and wave action and activity. So we capture variance in that by sampling it several times over the season. So now I want to shift gears a bit and take you through what the 2023 Water Quality Report has in it and what it says in a nutshell. The 2023 report, just a reminder, is a member benefit, and it can be accessed only once you have logged onto the website. Next. So what are the results from the water quality report? So this is basically a snapshot of what the report contents are. So the results from 52 sampling areas within 17 different lakes and rivers, 534 samples between May and September in 2023, and then a review of the methodology, detailed summaries of the 2023 data in individual area reports, and then our consultant provides recommendations to us that he saw when he was looking at the data. So we'll go through these in a little more detail. So where do we sample? Well, this tiny little map shows all the sites in 2023, including Lake Muskoka, Joseph and Rosso, Moon River, the Muskoka River, and 9 smaller lakes in Skelton, Brandy, Bruce, 3 Mile, Clear, Gull, Gullwing, Silver, and Star. We're happy to welcome 3 Mile back as a new partner in High Lake that wants to join us this year. So the map hasn't been updated for the 2024 sampling year yet. When you are logged in as a member, you can use this map a little more interactively to see the site locations a little more clearly. And that link is on the screen there. Next. So how are our lakes? Sometimes when you read our report, you actually don't get that overview of how things are. So there are generally 3 kinds of lakes. Eutrophic, and Lake Erie is a good example of, or maybe a bad example of that kind of lake. They're often shallow, highly productive, lots of nutrients in the water, but not lots of nutrients usually produce lots of fish. There's mesotrophic, which is in between, so moderately enriched and maybe not quite as clear. And then there's oligotrophic, and those are nutrient limited, low productivity lakes, and that's where the lakes of the Muskokas tend to be. The phosphorus concentrations are how we determine the productivity potential of those lakes, and the red line here shows us where most of our lakes are falling and the average phosphorus concentrations. So in the open deep water at all sampling sites, we're well below provincial water quality objective, and that's shown as 10 micrograms per liter for aesthetic deterioration. So that means that you don't see crud in the water. And then there's a 20 microgram per liter for nuisance algae. So above that, it's a possibility one would see that happening. So in all of our lakes, 40 of the 47 deep water sites had phosphorus levels of less than 5 micrograms per liter. So that puts basically all our lakes, save and except one or two, in the very oligotrophic category, clear and nutrient limited. And most of the nearshore sites were also less than 10 micrograms per liter, with just a handful slightly exceeding 10. Next slide. This is an example of the summary charts you can find in the report. So here's all the total phosphorus sites for Lake Joseph. The black is the deep water sites, the yellow are the near shore, and the blue are the creeks. And you can see the slightly greater variability in the near shore, the yellow one's showing a lot more ups and downs. So you can see slightly greater variability there. Next. And then this is charts that we have for each site that show how the long-term trends are occurring from when we started. So you can see the data points back in 2002. So we can see, have things gone up or down? And sometimes we see things are, there's higher levels. You can see some pointed peaks there. Were they real? Were they not real? And so that's why long-term trends are important. Was it maybe a blip? Maybe it was a contaminated sample with a little bit of algae in it or something that shouldn't have got analyzed. But otherwise, you can see, and then you see where the various provincial water quality objectives are. The red being nuisance algae, the yellow being aesthetic deterioration, and then where we are today. So we're in very good shape on most of our lakes. This is an example of a chart depicting long-term bacteria results, and this is showing the results from Beaumaris. Total coliform counts from samples collected in 2023 are summarized in the area reports. We didn't exceed any sites, with the exception of one at Willow Beach in August that exceeded 1,000 counts per 100 mils. And that could be indicative of an impact from upstream agricultural uses and wildlife. So elevated concentrations of bacteria were frequently associated with precipitation events described by volunteers in their sampling notes, including the Willow Beach sample, which was taken after a high rainfall event. So it's important, though, that you resample when results were high, so we can determine if this is ongoing or not. And if we find continued extremes, we'll try and engage with the right authorities to see where action can be taken. And we did that a few years ago. We had high levels found in Minette up in Lake Rosso. It turned out we let the Township Muskoka Lakes know. They did an inspection and found that there was some problem with the septic system and had it shut down until such time as it could be fixed. So we, these results can be used more immediately than just waiting till the report is prepared. Next. So this is an example of the area reports. Most of our report is in fact appendices, which contain these individual reports. Most people just read these as they're only interested particularly in their own areas, but and this shows what I was showing before. You can see the results in the just under the map. You can see where the sites are. You can see the volunteers. You can see the sites that are done and the results by item, and then the trends over time as well. And then there's usually a little description. The final thing, or not the final, we'll talk about the clarity of the lakes. So water clarity in the lakes ranged from 1 meter deep, which was Brandy Lake, to 6.8 meters at the appropriately named Clear Lake. Lake Joseph is the clearest of all the three, averaging about just under 5 meters, followed by Rosso at 3.5 and Muskoka at 2.9. And only 2 of the results fell into a category that would be considered mesotrophic, with all the remainder clearly in the oligotrophic range. And then the final thing we keep track of is occurrences of blue-green algae. And this year we didn't experience any confirmed algal blooms. And there may have been things that people were concerned about, but they have to be confirmed in our MLA sampled lakes, although there were some locally in other lakes that are not part of our sampling program. And then new to our program, or relatively new in the last couple of years, has been looking at chloride. This is because there's new science coming to us from the Friends of the Muskoka Watershed showing impacts on freshwater Daphnia, which our friends like to call the wee lawnmowers of the lake that keep our algae in check. And that effect seems to be occurring as low as 10 to 20 milligrams per liter. So you can see that here on the graph, some of those results are up to 18 milligrams per liter, and certainly a number just over 10. So we need to continue to keep an eye on this, but we're looking at, it's an indicator of road salt, and we will be looking for those places that are particularly close to urban centers or the highway as it runs nearby the lakes. So we'll be doing that this year as well. So we've used and when we look at summarizing the results, we've used a stoplight format to represent the parameters and see if it meets the thresholds. So these are the thresholds that we have, next one, Karen, that we've been applying for the last few years, and they are aligning our thresholds with those of the District of Muskoka's Lake Health Policy. So they are based on whether there's trends, increasing trends in phosphorus over a period of time, whether there are, there's extremes, whether we've measured higher levels of E. coli, and whether there's any harmful algal blooms. And those are the 3 ones that the district is after, and these are the 3 that we've applied the lights to. So here's what the results of the threshold analysis produced. So in the 52 areas sampled in 2023, 47 were assigned green lights, excellent, while 4 areas were assigned yellow lights, and 1 was assigned a red light, which was at Willow Beach. That's near Kerry Glen, in case any of you are going, where's Willow Beach? And that was the only site that showed an increase in phosphorus concentrations over time, as well as elevated bacteria. All 4 red lights were the result of elevated bacteria concentrations. There were no harmful algal blooms, so that wasn't a problem. And as a result, there's sort of these 5 areas that the consultant has flagged as being, we need to continue to watch and to sample very carefully. So the final thing from the report are recommendations. So our consultant has recommended the following, that we can always continue to review the sampling locations, but we need to understand that we don't want to switch them up too often, because there's a value in having the same site sampled year over year so that we can establish long-term trends. That we do continue our training with volunteers to ensure that we have methodological consistency, and that's very important to have results that can be compared site to site, not just year to year with the same sampler. And that we especially work on making sure we try to do dry weather sampling. I know it was hard last year. It seemed to be raining every weekend. We tried to go sampling. And that we also need to ensure that we're retesting bacteria samples when they exceed thresholds, because they could be a blip or they could be something real that we could alert to the authorities if necessary. And that we continue to focus sampling on Willow Beach, Minette, Beaumaris, and Windermere, where we found elevated levels of bacteria or phosphorus. So those are the recommendations that the summary recommendations are a little bit longer than that in the actual report. So with that, we'll ask if there's any questions that anyone would like to ask about the report or any of the context behind that. And I'm not seeing any questions. Now, I think you can also, if you want to, when you do a question, you can also decide that you like it as well. And I think if you like it, then it'll come up a little bit more. So the question I see here is, Stuart Lake has shown algal blooms the last few years. Are we connected to whoever tests this area, and what are the results? And I think, I don't know if Chris, you would know the answer to that question. I'm not sure what, I don't have an answer right now. Chris, do you?
Stuart Lake is not part of our program and would have only been reported on by the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit. So it won't show up in our report except in the overall summary of harmful algal blooms.
It may be sampled by the district, though, if it's within the district Muskoka. So that may be that data is available.
And
yeah, go ahead.
For a site to be recognized as having bloom, it has to have people from the Ministry of Environment go out and actually confirm that it's the right kind of algae and right kind of density and so on. And that indeed is done by the provincial government and not by us.
Yes, that's right. There's a follow-up question that Penny has. Would be helpful to have a test site there. Any of the, we'll call them affiliate lakes, they have to come to us and ask to be part of the program. So that would be something you could encourage, Penny. And we are happy to chat with them. Can you delay a test weekend if it's constantly raining? Jan, Chris?
The short answer is no. We collect our samples over the weekend, the Friday to Monday. We package them up on Tuesday and mail them to our lab. And so there's, if it happens that the weather's not right, well, we're kind of stuck with it. If the results are really unusual, we can always go back and test or compare with the results from the next month to see if it's okay. But if you hold it back, then we don't really have a transportation mechanism to collect late samples and send them in.
The other thing to note, if it is constantly raining, number one, there is an indicator on your sheet that asks about rain, but emphasize it on the note section that, it was collected during the rain. Use the note section as often as necessary to give your response to what you've seen when you're out on the water.
There's another question here. I think is anyone working on the problem of excessive goose poop in higher E. coli areas? And I would say the District of Muskoka has a naturalization program that they work very hard to try and get landowners to change their lawn to something a little more natural. Certainly, if you have lawn, you're going to have geese, and so if you want to get rid of them or to encourage your neighbors to get rid of them, certainly the MLA has just in our recent shorelines, if you've got it, put out the various programs that you can take advantage of for naturalizing your shoreline. And I think once we, in many of the GTA areas, there's a lot of egg oiling and things that goes on because the population grows exponentially. At least here we have a few predators, so they'll help to keep them under control a little bit more. But certainly naturalization is your best bet to keep that under control. And then the 3 Mile Lake participates in Lake Partner program as well. So we're looking to sample stream inflow sites with the MLA program for our first year back. Haven't been sampled since 2007, so we're sampling phosphorus with us. Will you be providing chloride and calcium levels as well in our samples? I'd have to look at the chart. I don't think we were looking at chloride for any of the smaller lakes unless they had a particular source. I'm pretty sure they're all on the big lakes, but I'll go back and check. All right, that's all the questions we have there. So I think we'll move on to the water quality training. I'm going to turn that over to Jan. And if you think of another question along the way, we're going to have a question and answer at the end of that. So you can always ask it as we move on. So over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Deb. The important thing to remember is that the video that we're going to look at is a review or an introduction if you're new to the program. It's very important if you're a new sampler that what you do is go out and get hands-on training with one of the experienced people on your team and talk to your team leader. You will be identified that. When you pick up your material, there will be one box, a bin, per site for the group site. And but each of the participants, each of the samplers will be getting a book, so you'll have it. Check your bin as soon as you look at. We try very hard to get it right, but there's a lot of them, so sometimes their mistakes are made. Make sure that you know where you're going. Those are your sites and the parameters, what you're testing for. And as mentioned earlier, we try to avoid rain, but as Chris said, we have to get it in on the weekend. Now, last year, we thought we had a day that was going to be rain and the heavens open. It didn't. The sun came out and we got a break and out we went. So you have to have some flexibility. Those notes, as I mentioned before, are really important. Did you see significant growth that you've never seen in that site before on the bottom of the lake? Is it windy that might make a difference? What about the boat traffic? Was there a moose in the lake at the time? So all of those are useful. Construction is really important as well. And if there's construction going in the water, i.e. bridge repairs or a dock building, note that too, because those things that stir up the bottom can affect your samples. If you have a high value in your bacteria sample, again, note that there is a retest going to happen and get it done ASAP and submit that data as well. If you can't do the weekend, let us know and we'll try and find somebody else who can do it. The protocols are on the website and your binder will have both detailed protocols and the instant the short and quick and dirty list. So that's a useful guide to have as well. And I think we're ready for the video, Carrie-Anna.
We don't see anything happening, Kariana. Kariana, are you having difficulties?
It's showing up on my screen. That's
It's
why
not
I'm
showing.
not. Okay.
No, it's not showing up for the participants.
Okay, hold on.
I think you have to change a setting. We didn't practice that this morning, did we?
That's okay. Can you see it up on the screen now?
Yes,
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
we're not getting the sound though.
Yeah,
That's the first one. That's not the second one.
it worked when we tried it before, everybody, just so we did practice it. No, up more.
That's the one.
23. We're not hearing any video.
We're not hearing the sound, but what this section is doing,
Oh, there we go. Or not. No.
so until it comes on, I can go over it. What we're looking at is the bin, the contents of the bin. And you're going to have, this is the binder that you have.
Why would it not have the fund?
And then in the bin, you'll have a basket that contains the seki dish,
I'm gonna click it again at the thing.
and these are two of the filter methods that we've used. Thermometer, a collection bottle, bacteria bottle. It's also used for chloride, or the same type of one, and then your sample bottles. And the Sharpie is for the phosphorus collection bottles, and the pencil is used on the lid of the bacteria bottles. You need to keep the samples cool, so some kind of a cooler bag with ice. For safety, you want to be wearing a life jacket. And this should be the infamous, oh, there's the list, the inventory that comes in your bin. So you can check off and make sure that you've got all of the articles you need. If you are not collecting for bacteria, you won't have those things in your bin. And as I said, you get a reference guide. There's a quick reference guide. and that's the quick and dirty. I think we now have the detailed reference guide is only on the website, not in the binders. But also in there, you'll have the list of dates. And that's a 2022 list, so, but you'll have an updated one. And the sample sheet. And as you can see, it's got names for the date, who the testers are, who's going out, the time, and the results. And do as much of that before you go out in the boat. It's much easier to write at home. So what I generally do is I put the date, who's going, where we're going. And then obviously you can't test the water until you're actually out there. So, and if you're collecting both phosphorus and bacteria, you may want to put a note on the side to remind yourself that what you're doing. So any additional comments, you've got places to do that. Observations. You also will have a map that shows where, I do East Bay, but there's 3 or 4 places in East Bay that we sampled. So that's it. This one is showing Willow Beach that we talked about before. So this is the recap. So Chris and Louise are going to show you how to do the deep water collection. And you can see they've got their life jackets on. You do this on the shady side of the boat. Oh, and whenever you do it, make sure that you're not wearing sunscreen and you can't be wearing sunglasses while you're trying to do your Secchi dish. Louise is putting the thermometer in over the side of the boat. We usually do that first so that it's got time to adjust. Record the air temperature first, and now Chris is lowering it. The Secchi dish, you can see it's divided into white and black segments. And when you can no longer distinguish between those, that's the level that we want to be at. Now, he is measuring his down depth, and he's placed a clothespin on it. He's going to let it go down a little bit more, and then he'll bring it up and see what his up level is and mark that. Now, we have replaced or are in the process of replacing the ropes on the Secchi dishes, and we've marked them with each meter is marked with red electrical tape, and we have written whether it's 1 meter, 3 meters, 5 meters, whatever on it. The half meters are marked with red dots on the rope, and every 10 meters, the 10, 20, 30, 40 are marked with black.
Centimeters.
Centimeters, not meters. We don't go that far. Okay, so now he's preparing to do the collection of the sample, and you notice that he rinsed the bottle. He's attaching it with a combination of the plastic ties and the now give me the, I keep forgetting the name of this black thing that drives me crazy, but it works. And he's going to collect. This is a deep water sample, so you need the weight to get it down. And he's going to take that down to the Secchi dish, letting it down at a consistent rate so that we're going to be getting water throughout the waters table. You can see it's at the collection, waiting for the bubbles to stop and then bringing it up. And notice he's very careful that he's not touching the lip of the collection bottle with his hands, because you don't want any contamination that way. Okay. Now, you need to rinse the filter twice. You do not rinse the collection bottles themselves. They have chemicals in it. So if you rinse them, you lose it. So you have to be very careful with that. You fill it up to the shoulder of the bottle. And again, very carefully, do not get your fingers on the lid or on the bottle itself, and then you store it in the cooler. Then we go to a near shore sampling. And by the way, she did take the thermometer up again. We missed filming it. Again, you're going to put the thermometer into the lake. One of your first things, and record the temperature on your data sheet. Here we go. And be careful when you lean over that boat now to rinse out the collection bottle. And you notice he's plunging down almost to his elbow to make sure that he's getting not just the immediate surface water. And you do that twice. And again, you need to rinse that funnel twice. And again. You're watching to make sure that you've got the correct amount of water in. There. And as you can see, you sometimes get wet as you're removing the funnel, so be prepared. And again, it goes into the yeah. Now, this time they're using the same sample that they grabbed but this is a bacteria sample. And you notice that the bottle itself was not rinsed. And it's not filtered. This time we're trying to get all the bacteria that's in the lake into our bottles. So it's not a rinse and it's not a filtered process. And again, now we've brought the thermometer up and we can record.
Jan, do you want to mention about duplicates for the spring one?
Yep. Yes, but it's just deep water. So in the spring turnover one, which is your first one, you will have duplicates for your phosphorus. You'll have to have two sample bottles, but you can use the same grab. This is what we just showed. We're doing it again, but that's fine. He's got the bottle. This is the other way you can do it. It's just put the bottle in the water. And the bottle will be marked with the site number on the bottle. On your phosphorus samples, before you go out, make sure that you've marked the date on your bottle. The site number will be pre-matched, and make sure that the grab and the bottle numbers match. Okay, now we're looking at, Louise is actually the star of the show. Louise is my team leader, so I have delivered the samples to her. She does our bacterial testing. So she has set up the incubator. She's testing to make sure it's reached the temperature that is necessary. And that takes a period of time. So this is where coordination comes in. If you're doing bacteria samples, it's very important that everything goes to your team leader at the same time, all of the samplers, because this is a 24-hour process. And as Chris said earlier, all our samples have to be in by the Tuesday and they're shipped out on the Wednesday. So coordinate. Louise now has the sake dish, and not the sake dish, I'm sorry, the coliform plates. And these are used for these are what go in the incubator. So she's showing you that they're matched again. The B is for Beaumaris and the W is the Willow Beach #1. She also has a bottle of water that you can see there, which is distilled water, and she will use it, fill it as a test plate. It should come out clear. Okay. She's pouring the water from the sample onto the plate. And you can see why we need 8 ounces of water. She's checking to make sure that all of the wells are filled. And this is I'm always fascinated by this. You can tip it and it'll get the edges off, but it won't empty the cells. She's noticed that some of them aren't full, so she's topping it up. And again, tapping it and making sure that her fingers do not touch the wells. They're just on the edge. Want it full. The reason that she's holding it up for the length of time she is you don't want excess water either, because then you're going to get contamination between the cells. They have to be full, but not over full. They have to be isolated, each cell. And then she's just going to swab up any, just make sure that there's no water left. And she's put the cover on. She's satisfied that it's ready to go into the incubator. And she will put all of her bacteria samples, each collie plate, into the same run in the incubator. So, as well as I said, the test one, which with the clear water. And that bottle of distilled water will be in your kit. But only the team leaders who are actually doing the bacterial testing will have the collar plates and the bottle of water. They all go together. And she's recording. And she's rinsing out the collection bottle, storing the lid and the bottle itself separately so it's dry. Okay, so we've now gone 24 hours later, and the collie plates are coming out of the incubator. She's put it on a piece of white paper because she's trying to distinguish how many of those cells are white, are clear, and how many are blue. And she will record the blue. So you can see that on the data sheet, it has a number of blue cells. And this one, a very different result from the first one. And again, she'll record the number that are blue. Now, the reason that this one is dark is she's going to use a fluorescent light because the cells that are of concern, you can see there, that some of those cells pop out as being fluorescent as well as blue. Those are the ones that we're concerned about. How many are both blue and fluorescent? And again, the light is part of the test kit that goes with the incubator crew. And that's the second column on it's the far right column on the data sheet, the ones that are both blue and fluorescent. Okay. And as we mentioned before, if you have more than 18 fluorescent blue and fluorescent cells, please record that and retest that location as soon as possible, because that could be an indicator of something that has to be addressed. And I think we're open for questions if anybody
Nope,
has any.
We have a couple more slides there.
Oh, do we? Oh,
Yeah.
my
Right,
apologies.
yeah. Oh,
Yes.
you want
So
to talk to this, Jan, or do you want me
Yeah,
to?
this is well, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is, as I mentioned, we've remarked the ropes for the Seki dishes. And if you look at the left, you can see that we're starting the handle on the Seki dishes is included. So we've held the Seki dish up to the edge of the table before we started marking the length of the rope. And you can see the meter mark with the red tape, the black marks every 10 centimeters, and the half-meter mark has the red ink on it.
I was just going to also say to the samplers that are using these, we've used an electrical tape. We want to know if it's performing, and if it's not, if you bring your disc back to the office, and I found a better tape after the fact. Some of them will have the better tape and some of them won't. So anyway, and if your rope is fraying too much, you can take a lighter to the end of it and just we've wrapped it with tape. But if it's fraying too much, you can just put a little bit of heat to it and it'll melt the edges of the rope. It's a nylon rope. And if you have any feedback, if it's working, we haven't tested it out yet. We think it's going to work. It's a similar method to what everybody else does, but if you have feedback that says this wasn't as easy to do, I know I'm going to be able to read my numbers, which I couldn't do before. So I'm very excited about being able to know. And now they're all in meters. Some of them were in feet, some of them were in meters. So now we're all consistent. They're all going to be in meters. So it was quite a job to, as you can see, we got 3 full tables in the rec center to lay them out on. So it was quite a task. So
And we'll find out whether it was actually the fault of the ropes or whether it was just our eyesight. I think there's one left that has the original on it, but I think it's in our bin.
yes, we have that one.
That's why we have 2 desks, I think.
And the next slide, Mariana. This one was just provide the how to put your for the deep water sampling, how to set the bottle up if it's not already set up. And with the change in the Secchi discs, we've taken off some of the clips and some of the other things. So that's something you want to check when you get your baskets.
Yeah, be very careful. You need 1 Carbonair clip and you should have 2 zip ties. So just double check it because it's much easier to give it to you when you pick it up if it's missing rather than having, because remember the first weekend is the long weekend. So rather than a trip back into port to get additional supplies.
Next slide. Just the chloride, there are a few sites for those that have that in their list. We want just to make sure everybody understands the same sampling. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, no, we've got 11 sites and we're adding the one from Inmanet. And again, it's the same as with the phosphorus sample, but you don't need to filter. So it's really more like the bacteria sample, isn't it, Deb? That you're doing 1 dip and 1 dip and sealing it.
Exactly.
And this is when we're on the water. Somewhere over.
Yes, wave, say hi.
Yeah.
And then the dates are on the website, and as Jan mentioned, they're on your
they're in your binder.
Well.
The important thing is you don't want to go out in the water alone. This is not a 1-person job. And so you do need to work with the team and find a time that's satisfactory, both for weather and your own convenience. And as we said before, if life interferes and you can't do your sampling on that weekend, please let the office know and we'll try and find somebody who will cover for you. And obviously we'll need to pick up your sample bottles. So give us as much notice as you can.
Exactly. All right, one more. So we just want to say thank you to all again. And I want to say thank you to our environment committee members, particularly those who have been struggling with the re-roping the Secchi discs. And Jan, of course, for all her efforts in both the training and helping out with that. Chris, Scott Millard, and Deborah Frame, and Louise were at the community center all day, or most of the day, doing the ropes. And of course to Carrie-Anna, and we have a summer student, Megan, who on her second day, we made her stay overtime and help carry boxes. So thanks to everybody. And of course the phone's ringing just as we do this. And I think we've got one more.
Yeah. So it is important. We need help with doing this. And we also need people who are going to be wanting to love and preserve Muskoka. So becoming an MLA member is a very important thing to do. And if you've got new neighbors particularly, tell them about the MLA and all of the other wonderful organizations in Muskoka that help keep our water clean and our environment safe. And read your news bites because all that information you need to know is probably going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to have this recorded. It'll be on the website, and the videos are there as well. But don't feel that this is it. You can't talk to any of us through the office. We can help you with any questions you have going forward. And now I think we have time for questions. Yes. So again, put in the chat if you are in the Q&A. Q&A, please. And See if anybody has any questions.
Okay, I only have the former one, so maybe we don't have any on testing.
Don't see any yet, but there may be just some coming in. People typing madly, perhaps. Give that a second.
Or we've got everybody been there, done that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I know we have a few names on that list that are new. So, and then we have some veterans on that list, so on the participant list. So. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. That means everybody's hungry. They want to get out and go to dinner. I'm glad you were able to narrate that, Jan. We'll have to see how we get the sound going in a different time. Oh, when can we pick up the kit? Good question, Carol. Thank you. We have kits ready, except that some of them don't have Seki just yet because we didn't finish them all. It took longer
Yeah.
than we thought.
I'm gonna say, could you probably wait until after Tuesday? I'd like to go in and just take a look at the binders that we didn't have last week, and just make sure that the quick and dirty guides in it. We did miss that one year, so I'll try and get in on Monday for that.
Yeah. So if you want to just email ahead to Kariana and make sure that your area is ready, I think that would probably be the best bet, just so you don't make a trip that you didn't need to. So her email was there, info@mla.on.ca. All right. Well, you did good there, Jan.
Well,
No questions. All right. Well, then thank you all for attending. And any last words, Chris? So you got any? Are you good?
I'm good.
Great.
Good ad lib there, Jan.
well, I realized I didn't have all the detail because I was doing it a lot faster than the thing. Oh, my last word is, if you're going to look at it online, you're looking for the 2023 video. There's 2 videos, and you want the newest one.
Great. Good job. Well, thanks everybody, and look forward to interconnecting, and then we'll have some point we'll have a little celebration in the summer to celebrate your accomplishments and get to know each other. So we'll get that out in the near future, so that everybody can put that date in their calendars and be ready to meet
We are
fellow.
doing a repeat of this in person.
That's right. Yes, good point.
So
Thank you.
if you want a second dose of it, please join us at the community center. It's Seedling Day. The fire trucks are there. I believe your yearbooks could be available.
Books will be there, and we'll have
And
coffee and food. So if there's a better enticement, and a big snapping turtle. So bring your kids. Apparently, the turtle's making a return event. Yes, it was a big hit last year. So yes, bring the kids along too. So great. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I'm just make sure we don't have any other questions. Oh, I think that's it. So we'll let you get on with your evening, and look forward to a successful sampling year. Take care. Good night.
night.